about today's conversation because I'm joined by someone I've been following for quite some years. Her choice of life path and her presence have been deeply inspiring for me. Her name is Courtney Adamo. You might know Courtney from her earlier work from Baby Chino blog, or more recently from the way she has thoughtfully set up in her intentional life online. What I love most about Courtney, she embodies a kind of slow, connected living that's rooted in trust, trusting in life, in motherhood, in creativity, and the unfolding path. She's a mother of 5, a writer, a gentle guide, and someone who holds a clear, heart-led vision for her family, for freedom, and for living in alignment with what feels true. Today, we're going to talk about all of that, her journey, how she navigates creativity and motherhood, what it really looks like to live with more presence, and how she keeps coming back to her own inner compass. So hi, Courtney, welcome to Mindfully Thrive.
Hello, and thank you for having me.
So excited to have this conversation with you. So I have these episodes called Vision Holders, where I am having conversations with people who have been lighting me up over the internet for quite some years, and having this opportunity to just connect and chat feels a real blessing, to be able to connect and go a bit deeper with your story and your insights that can help me maybe also move in a direction that's aligned for my life, taking your experiences.
I love that idea.
So could you share a little bit about what you're holding most closely to yourself and in this season of your life? What's coming up for you more recently that's of interest?
Oh, that's such a good question, I find, especially because I think it does change throughout motherhood or womanhood. And I think that it is such an important thing to be able to ask yourself, because when you know sort of what you're holding closely or what you're prioritizing at the moment, that's when you can kind of achieve the best, optimal balance for you at that time. Obviously, I've got 4 kids living at home still. My eldest is now at university. So I've got, I want to say I have 4 teenagers, but the 4th one's almost a teenager, so she's not technically one, but and the eldest is going to turn 20 in June, so we're on the brink of having only 3, but at the moment there's 4 teenagers, which is quite a lot of big energy in our family. And then we have an 8-year-old as well. And so I'm still in that thick of family life, which is obviously such a huge priority to me. But saying that, now that they're older, I really find a lot more space in that motherhood realm, and space for me, space for my husband, Michael, space for friendships, space for lots of things that weren't always a priority for me when the kids were younger. And to be honest, I think Michael and we didn't even know that we weren't very connected. It was just like we just were coping, and it wasn't until a few years ago that I really kind of was able to have that space to question our relationship. And it really dawned on me that we could be so much better, so much closer, so much more intimate, so much more just vulnerable with each other. And so we've been working on that. So that's been really nice.
I love to hear that, because I really resonate with that. So you have, your oldest is 20 and your youngest is 8.
Yes.
My oldest is 32 and my youngest is 13. So I have quite a big gap between my oldest and youngest, and the oldest had moved into studying and out of the family almost before the second two came, the third, yeah, the second two came along. But that dynamic of saying goodbye to your oldest son and then connecting back with your husband, it's a lot of different kind of emotions going on all the time. And then continuous carrying. And how is the sense of the oldest one leaving the nest? How does that feel for you?
Yeah, that was really, I mean, it's been a real journey. So he left in August. So he's nearly had, a full, school year. I think he goes until May. And it's one of those things where you know it's going to happen, and the thought of it makes you sad, but you don't actually know how sad you're going to be until it happens. I was so caught off guard by how much I grieved it. I mean, even talking about it now, I don't know if you can tell, but I can feel that feeling.
So because you're far away. He's not just gone to university like we would have done 2 hours away or across the country. Isn't that right?
Yes. Yes. So we live on the east coast of Australia, a small kind of surfing beach town. And he has gone to Hawaii. So he's in Honolulu, to another beach town, but quite far away. And to be honest, I love the fact that he's there. I love that he was so adventurous to go. He didn't know anybody. He had no friends going there. He'd never been before. And he got accepted to this school, and he went with such enthusiasm. And it made me so proud to see. And he settled so quickly. He was so happy straight away, which obviously makes it all so much easier as a mother and a parent to witness that. I mean, every time I speak to him, I think his smile can't get bigger, which feels so good. And we feel so proud of him. But it was that letting go was hard. I mean, I think I cried for 3 days straight. I mean, I literally felt so much grief around it.
It's the bizarrest thing because it's not that you want anything to be different. And you're not
Exactly.
asking him not to go, or and
Yes.
everything around it is beautiful. It's just the
Yes.
heart making those adjustments to letting go. Yeah, the elastic band of motherhood just needs to be stretched, and it's painful.
Yes. I kept having this sort of kaleidoscope of images in my head around that time of, I could see his chubby little toddler face, and I could feel the weight of him in my arms as a baby. And it just all felt so fast.
Mm.
So crazy to be at that point where you're letting him go, and it's the end of that chapter of having him home. And yeah, and yet I think what can happen for a lot of parents at that time, certainly it happened to my parents. They felt like they didn't, my dad, I think particularly felt he didn't spend enough time with me, and he felt it went too quickly, and he wished he could have done things differently. And I found I didn't have that feeling, which was a nice thing. I felt like we really made intentional choices to slow our lives down and spend more time with him. And we really enjoyed him. And he and I that I didn't have, which was a nice feeling. I didn't feel any guilt or anything like that. So excuse me.
It's okay.
Yeah, so it was, I mean, it was a sad but also beautiful time. And what I will say also is that now that he isn't home, and he's not at the dinner table every night, it's made space for the other children. And of course, everyone misses him. I think we all
Yeah.
miss, the youngest one especially talks about him all the time and misses him. But our second child kind of blossomed, because he didn't have an older sibling there. Sorry, I've got some noisy truck outside of my window making lots of noises.
Okay, we cannot hear.
Okay. Yeah, so that was a really nice thing to witness, to watch the other children flourish kind of in that with new dynamics. You know, it shifts things in your
Mm.
family when one child leaves. Even right now, I mean, Malo, our fourth child, is at school camp. She's at a horse riding camp. And she left yesterday morning, and it's been so interesting to see the way, you know, even last night's dinner was just different. You know, it is just different when one leaves. And so yeah, so that is also nice. Yeah.
You've prepared them so well because the most lit up I felt when I was watching your journey was the traveling that you did as a family across the world to discover where you wanted to be and now actually live.
Mm.
And so it's funny, isn't it, that we as parents, because I moved from Wales in Britain to Spain, and now my son is moving from Wales to New Zealand.
Wow,
And
amazing.
so we inevitably teach our children that the world is something to explore. And even though it feels scary and, you know, I would love to see them more often, but I'm so excited for them in that adventure too.
Yes, that's it. I think we know this too about our family. We have such connections to places around the world, having come originally from America and having family there, and then living in London for 12 years, and then traveling for 18 months. And, you know, we have friends, beautiful friends in all places. And, you know, the conversations around our dinner table often are like, Ivy wants to go to art school in New York City, and Mala wants to live in Paris when she finishes high school. And
I love it.
you know,
The
and
world
it's
is
so
wide, but it's so convenient at the same time to see it that way, you know, that
it
the world
is.
is open for us all to explore however we choose.
Yeah, I think that was really the most beautiful thing about traveling, apart from just spending so much time with our children and as a family, and the bonding and, you know, closeness that came from that. But was just this eye-opening experience for our kids to really see and experience what life is like in so many parts of the world, and to see how you can live a really happy life in other parts of the world. And it looked different in other places. You know, we became really close to the tuk-tuk driver in Sri Lanka, and he invited us to his home for dinner, and he literally had like 4 posts and like a tarp um over his head, and he was one of the happiest men that we met in our travels. And you know, we became really close with our this really cute 20-something-year-old surf instructor in Chile, and he was so happy and vibrant, and the kids got to see what kind of happiness looks like in that form.
Mm.
and and the kids still talk about these experiences and these people, and I think it's really showed them, it's given them this broad perspective of the world, and hopefully, I think, shown them that, you know, our problems really pale in comparison to a lot of
Mm.
other people's problems, and also that there's so much possibility out there to live a happy life. It doesn't, and you know, like, I think sometimes you think you have to go to school, and you have to do well, and then you have to get a job, and you have to become really successful, and you have to earn a lot of money to be happy. And certainly that trip showed our kids that that isn't necessarily true. So
Um, and how you learn to develop your creativity and develop your skills and decide what's right for you is by seeing the wider world and what all the possibilities that there are out there for them to see what's available.
exactly. Exactly. I think so many times, you know, kids, when you ask them, what do you want to do when you're grown up, you know, and it's you can only, at that, when you're young, you can only answer what you know, and so it's so beneficial to show kids and talk to kids. And you know, even right now, Ivy's in year 10, and she's trying to look for work experience, and I really want her to like try to find something that might challenge her or be kind of new to her, because you want to open their eyes to what is out there, you know, and I just don't want her to kind of go with what she already knows or does well.
Yeah, or likes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So stretching. Again, it's about that stretching and coming
Yeah.
back to this idea of living across the world and packing up and leaving, not just to travel, but to then not go home again, or where is even home anymore. But I suppose
Yeah.
it's Australia. But you've lived almost 3 lives already and you're still so young. um, it's also teaching your kids that the emotional connection doesn't disappear when you live away or when you move away. And the sadness, it's okay to feel that sadness of homesickness and missing people. And yeah, just being in the day to day around this newness of life as you build again. How have your kids taken that? How are they in that? Do you feel like you are home now?
Yeah, I think we do. I mean, the kids definitely do. Um, it's a very weird concept for me because I grew up in a small town. Both of my parents were born in that town. My dad was one of 10 kids, so he had lots of siblings, and I had lots of cousins, and both sets of grandparents were in that same small town. And there was so much security and familiarity and comfort in that. And there was no question in my mind where home was.
Mm.
And still to this day, my dad lives in the same house I grew up in. I go home and my bedroom is the same. And there's like a bulletin board with like prom photos pinned to it. And like, it's just, you know, there's just no question to me. And I think sometimes that sense, that real strong sense of home and security has given me wings to
Yeah.
explore because I know I always have that base to come home to.
Mm.
And yet we've gone and done the exact opposite for our family and given our children such an opposite experience of family life or this concept of home. And I find it funny sometimes when I think about it because I don't really know, you know, last year we were traveling to America to visit family, and my eldest and I went to play pickleball in the park, and we ended up finding these young 20-something-year-old guys, and we were playing pickleball, and immediately they heard Easton's accent, which is very mixed and funny. They said, "Where are you from?" And he said, "Oh, I'm British, but I live in Australia." And I just found it so interesting that that was his answer.
What would
Um,
your answer be?
my answer is I'm American, but I guess I'm American, but I live in Australia is what I would say.
Okay.
Um, you know, I still sound very American to,
Yeah.
you know, to anyone outside of America. Um,
And how old
and
was Easton when he moved to Australia?
he was 11. We left
Okay.
London when he was 10, um, and then moved here when he was 11. And so, and I think our second child, and even maybe the third child, might answer similarly to that, but definitely Marlo and Wilkie feel quite Australian. I mean, that's kind of their, I mean, Wilkie was born here, so he is Australian, and yeah. But
Mm.
it is interesting because, like, I think when your parents have a different concept of home, and I still say home. I mean, we say home about a lot of things. Like even when we were traveling, we were calling the camper van home, you know. But I'll say
Yeah.
I'm going home to visit family or home. Yeah. And to me, I have that concept of my home, you know, that's where my family is, and that's in America. So I think the kids, they feel that same sense just from that being how I feel. So yeah, but it's
Mm.
interesting, very interesting. I think um there probably is a bit of confusion around it if we really dug deep into it.
But I feel also, I don't know, but like you're a family of 7, and I imagine it's the energy of the family that is home, and
I
that
think
could
so.
become anywhere that you go because it's
Yes.
a sense of belonging between you all that might be what home is.
That's exactly right. I think that, I would say, is such an enormous benefit of the way that we have traveled and moved about and lived far from family, is that we've become so close um, as a family. And not to say that you can't achieve that if you live, next to your family, but we
Mm.
definitely, we don't have anyone else. So we've created our own rituals and our own traditions, and yeah, and I think that has had a beautiful impact on our family.
I think I'm projecting, I don't know, but as I'm thinking about the dynamics and the relationship and this movement, it almost feels so blessed to have 5 kids, even though you didn't know you were going to move to Australia when you had the 4 of them. But that feels almost like tribal, that you move together. And the more you have, in a way, the more that you feel that sense of belonging. I think it's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah, I think definitely that is true.
Unintentionally, but like as a result, this
Yes.
kind of like is how it feels from an observer's perspective. So
Yeah.
you went from, well, I don't know you prior to Baby Chino. Did used to follow when you had, it was called Baby Chino, the blog that you
Baby
had.
Chino,
My
yes.
children were, well, how long ago was that?
We started that in 2007. So yeah, a very
And
long time ago.
is it still going?
No, no.
Okay, because
Yeah.
my oldest daughter, she was born in 2010, and so I think I was in that
Yes.
world
In
at the
that.
time it was still there. Um,
Yes.
even though it was in Britain and I was living in Spain, it was like, oh, these are so, if only kind of vibe of following what you were doing. And then as you move and travel, everything, it seems to be intentional, but is there a future plan in your mind when you're evolving as a business owner, as a woman who's making a living, who's creative in her own right, not just being a mother? Like, I don't want to undermine just being a mother, but like you've got these parallel sides of yourself evolving. Is it, how do you show up and just go with the flow? Is it a flow? Is it an intentional
I
process? How do
I
you feel in that
I've never had
question?
I've never been very good at future planning. I have to say, it's not a strength of mine. And I mean, even looking back at those early days of blogging, we set up a blog and it was really never intended to be a business. Um, it was, and it evolved, and then we responded to that, and we never had a business plan, and we literally kind of pivoted based on what people wanted and asked for, and that has really been the theme of my working life for sure. Is I've just kind of, I think in some ways, I work online and in social media, and because that is such a rapidly changing space anyway, that's had an impact on my career too. It's almost hard to plan because you're just doing what you can at that time and what's available to you and what works. But yeah, like we started a blog in 2007, back when people didn't even know what a blog
Oh.
was. And over time, we started getting shops wanting to advertise, but then there was such a limited space for advertising in the sidebar, and people wanted to be at the top, but then there was only so many spaces that were there for that. And so then we thought, well, we'll create this advertising platform where we can basically give a directory of shops and independent children's shops and put them into categories, and it became like a glorified advertising platform. And so it was a way for us to give space and, you know, promotion to these brands and also to earn money from it.
Yeah.
And so it literally has evolved like that. And obviously blogging kind of became less, I don't know. I mean, people started using blogs less, I think, as social media and Instagram took off, and businesses didn't need our service as much because they were able to gain traction and eyeballs on Instagram. And so we've literally just kind of pivoted as that world has changed. And then I went into creating online courses and writing ebooks because that felt like a new space for me. And even just this year, I've joined Substack, which has been a
Yeah.
completely new space again. And in some ways, it's like a return to old-fashioned blogging, and
Yeah.
um, that's been really fun. And so that that has been, I guess, my way is just kind of just reacting and doing and coming up with ideas. I mean, I kind of at the start of every year, I have a good brainstorm and a think about my priorities and what I'd like to achieve that year. And then I set out to kind of achieve them. But I don't think beyond that.
And you do seem to achieve them. It is quite amazing to watch how there's newness, always freshness coming from you, which is vibrant and so appealing to someone who's like really curious about the journey and the way that you are living a life that seems so intentional. How do you create space in a day with children and work to come back to yourself and remember what your intentions are or what your inner compass looks like? What are your
Mm.
practices that you apply or choose to do, if you have any?
Yeah, I mean, I think now that the kids are older and they're all at school, that's created so much more space around that. And, you know, the kids leave for school at 8 a.m. and
Mm,
um, I have kind of this hour before I like to sit down at my computer where I can vacuum my house and tidy the kitchen. And then I have, you know, half an hour usually where I can do a bit of yoga. And Michael and I like to do that together. So we do that 3 or 4 times a week. And we really love it. And even just vacuuming my house in the morning is a time for me to kind of think about what I have on my to-do list for that day, and what I'd like to achieve. And I kind of think about what the kids need and what does the after school time look like. And I just kind of get mentally prepared for my day. And then we do yoga, and that's a great way of just stretching and moving our body. And then I sit down and I am, like you said, I am a bit intentional, almost to a point of being quite strict about it. Like I don't do emails on my phone, and I don't I'm like, when it's work time, and I'm at my desk, and that's when I do emails. And I can only check emails when I've got my written diary next to me because I need to be able to write things down. And so I come into this space and that's my work time. And so I usually work from like 9 till 3:30 when the kids get home from school. And then obviously that's the end of my working day and I'm with the kids. And so it is right now. I mean, it hasn't always been this way. Obviously, when you've got young kids, it's nowhere near like that. But for me right now, there's a lot of calm and order to my day.
yeah.
Um, and you know, Michael and I like to play pickleball a couple times a week. So that means I start work at 10 on those days, and we do it in the morning. And sometimes we go for a walk after dinner. And so that's nice for us to do that, and to move our bodies again and to kind of chat and have that time together. And you know, I really feel how lucky we are to have that time, because obviously it was not like that. Like when we had young kids, I was not doing yoga. I was like not going for walks after dinner. Um, it was a very different time. So now I feel like there is a lot of space and I can prioritize myself. And even just having a shower in the morning is, I don't know, I feel I just check in with myself a lot. I do it when I'm having a shower. I do it when I'm grinding the coffee beans in the morning. I do it when I'm vacuuming the house. I feel in some ways I am good at that. I'm good at checking in with myself and sometimes overthinking things sometimes, but definitely thinking things.
Mm, mm. And you, this way idea of limiting where you're on your work mode within your home, I think is really important when you do work from home, and it doesn't kind of get
Yes.
sucked into all the emptiness that actually is part of being present and still, because otherwise it can just ends up consuming you if you don't set those rules into rigidity in a way. I mean,
Yeah, I think definitely like it would make me feel more scatterbrained, I think, if I didn't have that boundary around when I check emails and
mm,
when I'm in work mode. And I even try, I think when you work from home, you've got to give yourself those rules because otherwise, like there's laundry to fold
yeah,
and
there's always some busyness
there's
that you
always something you can do. Exactly. And um, yeah, it's good. Michael and I both work from home, and he's let me have this little office space. And so he works at the dining table, which I definitely think is less ideal. Like the postman comes and there's a distraction and the dog wants in and there's a distraction and the laundry beeps. And I sort of get to be tucked away here in my office, kind of far away from all of that, and definitely
yeah.
find it really helpful. um,
It could be that that works for his mental approach to the space, having
Yeah, and
flowers.
he likes to get up and stretch his body more, and he doesn't like to sit so long. And he goes out in the garden for his 15 minutes of vitamin D, and he's
Having
more of a
that move
yeah.
around.
And I'm more of like a sit still and get the work done kind of person.
It's great that you've figured it out and you've got the space to be able to take the time away from each other as well, and then you connect and come back.
Yes,
And
yes, yeah, it
I
is.
love that.
Yeah,
I know
there's
that the older kids are able to care for Wilkie. You get that time together in the evenings and
yeah.
allow the life to pay back in some way. The joy of the
100%. It
family.
is, yeah. I mean, it really is like that. I mean, there's so much more freedom and time for each other than there ever was, which is really nice.
I feel I let me ask, do you have a sense of trust and certainty about life unfolding? Because
I
the
do.
risks or the actions of big change that you've taken in your life, they've shown to pay off. But tell me a little bit about your outlook for life.
Yeah, I definitely do have a lot of trust, and I think I am able to make big or brave decisions. And even recently we've had to make a big decision about selling our house, and that was kind of scary and a bit sad at the start. And I kind of went on a journey with myself where I psyched myself up to the possibilities that could come from that change, and um, all of the good things that might be on the other side of that. And I reminded myself that we are where we are because of so many big, bold decisions that have opened up things to us. And like even leaving London and moving here, and I met my best friend, and the kids have met their best friends. And I just think thank God we did that. It's led to where we
Yeah.
are. Yeah, and I think sometimes those things can be so scary, but I have always found it's not that they're not scary to me, but I just don't they're not scary enough to stop me, I guess. I always ask myself, like, what's the worst that can happen? And
Mm.
so often that worst thing that can happen is not so bad.
Mm.
Um,
So worst
and
case scenario, play it out
yeah,
and see how
yeah,
you
play it
feel.
out. And I think, well, that's not actually so bad. And then the what can come from that could be so exciting. Um, and I think you have to in life, like I don't know. I've always just felt like this feeling that life, that, you know, the world is so big and life is so short. And so you just really want the most of it. Like, I just want to squeeze the most juice out of it. And I think, like, I get this sense sometimes, even now, like, I get this feeling of like, oh, I need an adventure. I'm like, how can we go to Europe for a year? You know, like, I really am in this kind of itchy state.
That was going to be my next question. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like that is something that I really resonate with. So a period of time of the set when things settle, it's almost
Mm,
like you want to come out again and explore again and have the newness
yeah,
around you again so
yeah.
that it can settle again, and then it's always evolving. And
I mean, it's so different to everyone because I have a really good friend in London. She's German, and she has lived in the same flat for as long as I've known her. She raised her boys there, and she's so content and at peace in this life that she has. Um, and I remember going for a walk with her in London many years ago, and she was like, Courtney, at some point, like, you just have to be happy with where you are instead of like the grass always being greener. And I think like there is a bit of that. Like, I question, like, am I always thinking the grass is greener, or is it because it's not that I'm not happy, it's just that I just want more or
yeah,
something. I don't
life
know
is
how to
for
explain it.
that. Let's explore it and let's
Yeah,
see
I don't
the
know.
world and see
You know, like, my father's another really good example. He was born in this small town. He's had the same job working for his family's farm for his whole life. He drives the same pickup truck. He comes home at the same time every day. He sits in his recliner chair. He watches the news.
the
He's a man of routine and rhythm, and he doesn't want anything more out of his life. He's so content. I can go home and we can play like 5 games of cribbage or backgammon and just sit in that chair. He doesn't have this craving, and I just have always had a craving. Like, I'm just not that person. And I think it's beautiful that he's like that. I love being around him because I feel so grounded and calm and like everything's okay. But it's just not my personality to
Mhm.
be like that. I could never just be content living in that one small town for my whole
And
life.
like you say, neither is right or wrong, but it's really
Exactly.
owning and being authentically honest about what it is your soul needs, what you're being called to do.
Yes.
And you
Yeah.
seem like incredibly happy. Like it's a sense of
Mhm.
just exploring, not to
Mhm.
escape. It's not running away from, it's running towards something.
Yeah, I feel that. I definitely feel that. Yeah. I mean, when we lived in London, there were things that I wanted a
Out.
change. I wanted
I've
out of.
just come
I
back
mean,
from Britain.
yeah. If
Yeah.
I'm just being really honest, I mean, we loved London and we had such a good life there. We have so many great friends and we traveled a lot and I loved it, but I was so over the weather and I was over that rat race, and just financial pressure was really getting to us. And
Mm.
so, yeah, so there were things that I wanted to change, but yeah, I think in general, it's just
Changing.
trying to, yeah, yeah.
That's the brave thing, is knowing
Mm,
that there needs to be change or you want to make changes and being able to own it and take those steps towards it. And you found a partner, a life partner that seems to roll with you.
yeah, yeah. He always jokes that it's definitely me that ruffles the feathers of our life a lot. And, you know, like every once in a while I'll sit down to have a chat with him and he can see the look in my eyes and I can almost see the fear in his because he's like, oh, what is she gonna say? What is going on with her today? And but I'm just a talker and I can't just think something and not say it. And I really I just I don't know. I guess so many of the bold decisions have been from started probably from me. I mean, even we met each other in Los Angeles, and I had the biggest crush on him, and um, I had to basically tell him I had this crush on him and like hope that he was going to like me back. And then like 2 months later, after he finally liked me back, he got offered a job in London. And I was like, oh, well, great. Like I've always wanted to live in London. And he was like, what are you talking about? Like, you're not coming with me. And I was like, well, yes, I am. What's the, and even then I was like, I was 22 years old. I was like, what's the worst that can happen if I don't like it? If we're not happy together, I'll just come home. And I think that that's been a theme of our relationship.
Love it.
Yeah.
And so let me just ask you this last, almost final question. So what are you currently learning or unlearning? So deconditioning or changing that feels important in the next phase, in the next stage of your life?
Well, I think I am embracing getting older and growing older. And I think that comes with a lot of challenges because we've been conditioned to think that it's not a good thing. And, you know, and there are things that are annoying about growing older and, going through perimenopause and all the challenges and symptoms
Yeah,
that can come from that don't sound very nice and
yeah.
make me a little bit wary of.
We don't know, do we? Each experience is
No.
also uniquely our own. I'm optimistic.
Yeah. I'm feeling
It's
optimistic
like
too, but
labor, you know? We
I
all have
keep
different
reading
ones.
all these books and there's just one symptom after the other that doesn't sound nice. And so I'm trying to educate myself so that I'm aware and that I know how to, you know, be as
Manage.
healthy as I possibly
Mm.
can to go through that phase. And also just embracing our changing bodies and um, where we get our value when you are no longer a young, vibrant, birthing, fertile woman.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to lean into that and embrace that a bit. And some days I find it's quite effortless. I feel fine. And some days I need to psych myself up a bit and give myself lots of reminders. But, it isn't easy to get older and to, I guess, watch your
No.
body change and your face change and to love yourself through it. But I'm trying to, and I'm hoping I can do that. I mean, I think it helps to have a lot of women role models in my life who I can look to who are, in their 60s or 70s or, to listen to podcasts of older women. I love the Wiser Than Me podcast. I love those chats and conversations with older women. And I think that's really helpful because it can make you just feel, so many of those older women in their 70s and 80s talk about their 50s being the best decade. And I'm like, oh, how amazing. Like I still have that to look
Bring it
forward
on.
to. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's something I'm working on. Um,
It
and
just reminds me too, as I said in one of your posts, it's actually a blessing to be getting older. And if
yeah,
we can just try and remain aware of how lucky we are to still, to be here, and especially if we look after ourselves,
mm,
so that we can continue to be flexible and be able to climb, keep moving
yeah,
and just keep active and act young. Um,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I think there's a lot. What's so great about, I think we're living in a time where we have all this information, so we are aware of what's going to help us live longer and more
my
healthy
dog.
lives. Oh, your dog, cute.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Yes, that is definitely something that I'm exploring now as well. It feels like that's a new phase for me to be moving into your nutritional recipes
Mm.
and all of the things that you have. Share with us where you have all of your beautiful content.
Well, up until a few months ago, I had all my content on my website. I had a blog and I offered online courses. And I had this membership program where I shared content throughout the month, every month. And I've just recently moved everything over to Substack because I started using the platform and I found it so great and so intuitive and such a great community there. And I started reading more of the people that I follow, reading their writing and letters there, and really enjoying it. And so I've literally taken the last 2 years of content that I've shared within my membership and moved it over to Substack. So it's now there to access. There's a paywall for that content.
Mm-hmm.
And then I send a weekly email that's for free that people can subscribe to. So I'm trying to create a balance of stuff you can access for free, and there's lots of stuff that's there, like recipes, tutorials, lots of really beautiful interviews like this one.
And the
Where
perimenopause as well that you've had.
Yes, yeah. So I've interviewed lots of experts and just inspiring women. And that has been really beautiful. And we meet up and we do these live chats together. So they're now being held on Zoom, and that's so fun because we choose a topic to explore that just relates to womanhood. And we just share. And it's so nice because you get these women, often it's like there's a couple in the UK and there's some in the US and there's some here in Australia, and like there's usually someone in Germany. And it's just these women, and we just come together just to share our honest experiences, and we can offer tips to each other and resources. And it's really, that is my favorite thing about what I do above all else. So, yeah.
There is
Um,
something really, really magical and powerful about coming together as a community
hmm.
of women and speaking. I've just come back from a retreat in Yorkshire,
Oh, how
a,
wonderful.
a group of women on human design, but the topic was wonderful and we got so much out of it, but it was more about the community and just
Yeah.
together. I haven't laughed so much in so long.
Oh,
I just
what a wonderful
cried
thing to
laughter.
do.
Yeah, it's been really special. So
It's so cup filling, isn't it, to be around women, I think, and to laugh like that, and to cry and
yeah,
share,
we did it
be
all.
really vulnerable with
We
each
did it
other.
all.
Yeah. It's so wonderful. I think I always find that um just sharing, like even just sharing your challenges and then having someone else share their challenges, it just makes you feel so much better knowing you're not the only one, and that there's other people who are going through what you're going through, and or there are other people on the other side of that challenge who are
Yeah,
happy and thriving. And I think that it's just so good. There's so much power in meeting as women and sharing with each other.
beautiful. And my last question is, if you were to leave one message to all of your kids, what they should carry in their hearts to remember their mum by, what would that be?
My
What do you
goodness.
want them to know?
Oh, it's such a big question. It's so tricky. I mean, I would just want them to know that I love them. That's, I guess, but I always think is, sometimes I sit there with my 8-year-old, we'll read bedtime stories, and then he always wants his back rubbed for like 5 minutes before bed. And I always just think, I just hope he knows I love him. Like, does this child know how loved he is?
Maybe
Um,
reading him his book and rubbing his back is a
yeah.
sign.
I'm like, I love you, I love you, I love you.
He gets
Yeah.
it.
But it's the same, with teenagers, even where you're not getting that intimate bedtime reading or rubbing backs. I still want them to know, like, that I love them, like that, how loved they are. I guess, I mean, that must be every mother's answer to that question.
It's nice. They know, I'm sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's so simple, but it's so true. And
It's enough.
yeah.
I think it's enough to know.
Yeah.
With all the
Yeah.
mistakes, with all the trials, with everything the way they are. That's all we really want to know, is that we belong and that we are loved.
Yeah, I think that. And I think, like kids can go through these challenging times, especially I think in adolescence, where there's this period, at least we have found, you know, when they're toddlers and they're throwing tantrums and they're being really annoying, we still really love them because they're still squishy and they're cuddly and they, you know, there's the bedtime stories and you love them. But then they get to be adolescents and they go through this grisly time with themselves, with the world, they pushing us away in lots of, and that's harder actually to still love that child when they're being
approach.
Yeah, but then it's more important than ever, I think, during that phase for them to feel like you love them despite all the things they're doing and attitude they're throwing. And yeah, so that is
it's the crucial age for adult development is that age group. 14 upwards, even to 25, that whatever they're going through.
Yeah. And I just think like whenever I feel grisly or I'm short on patience or, you know, like I still want to feel loved, like ultimately, you know,
definitely.
Like I can understand that maybe I was out of line or I lost my patience or I wasn't the best mother in that moment, but I still like I don't know, I still like want to be loved, and the kids are the same. They just want to be loved. And I think if you do that, if you can go through adolescence, especially loving your kids and letting them know that they are loved, even when they're not being the best versions of themselves, that's kind of how you'll get through it, both of you. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Ella. It's been such a beautiful conversation.